3000.
What is doing? I hate doing it, but I want everyone to like, subscribe, follow us on our Instagram, hit the subscribe button right there. One click, it's totally free. It helps the channel grow. Share the content, comment, do all that good stuff. Help us keep bringing you 3000 podcast. Now to the guest. Cheers. What is doing? My name is Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by a producer.
It's hard to say what I do, right? But
Performer.
that's why I'm listening carefully.
Yes.
Go ahead. Go on.
Academic.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say you're the first person to ever be on this show that has the doctor at the front of their name.
Okay. Well, then is that the end of the?
We've clocked it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and good day.
I'm joined by David Haberfeld.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been practicing, aka Honeysmack. Thanks for coming.
No, thank you.
Did I say it right?
You did? Yeah, of course.
People are always stunned when I say their names right, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't have to correct you." I'm like, "Well, I'm going to sort of practice that."
But it's always easy to get my name wrong because it's Haberfeld and people think Haberfield. It's an easy mistake.
I noticed the I wasn't there, so don't worry about that. But I almost said Haberfeld, which I guess you might get sometimes as well.
Well, that's probably the kind of correct Germanic Yiddish, way of saying it.
Okay.
So both are correct.
There we go. Okay, so you've given us a clue there where the story might start. So whereabouts did you grow up?
I grew up in East St Kilda.
3183.
3183. That's where my grandparents were. So my parents were over in, my home was kind of East Brighton. Mm-hmm. And but I spent a lot of time with my grandparents.
Yep.
So that's why I kind of say, between, East Brighton and East St Kilda.
Yeah.
Both east.
Both east. It's a good spot. I lived there for many, many years, man. Great spot.
Well, we only say East Brighton because East Brighton back in the 70s and 80s was the shit part of Brighton. I mean, now Brighton is, a lovely place. But
over Hawthorne Road was a bit different.
Well, exactly. So we were, yeah.
You were near the cemetery?
I was off Hampton Street.
Yeah. Okay. But it's now a couple of $1 million, man.
Oh, totally. It's amazing. Sometimes I drive past, it's like, wow.
Yeah. Everything's changed in the area.
Oh, the world is changing, yeah.
It is. We're all getting old. So growing up in that sort of area in between East Brighton and East St Kilda, how did you find music? What were you doing, man? Did you any other things you got into before you sort of picked this sort of musical landscape that sort of shaped you?
Did I pick it or did it pick me? That's a good question.
That happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think I actually chose. Yeah, I did choose it at some point. No, I was kind of absorbing everything around me at the time, growing up in the mid to late 70s when you start to kind of remember and start to get like a sonic and musical image and identity.
Yep.
So it was kind of punk music at the time and experimental synth pop and things like that. And then there was the whole disco thing and hip hop, early hip hop as well.
Yep.
So that was kind of the omelette that was taking shape.
For sure. And even though that area was very Jewish, it was still very multicultural as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a bouillabaisse of, different cultures as well.
Yeah.
Going down Carlisle Street, I always remember, hearing things like, Relax by, Frankie Goes to Hollywood and thinking, how kind of woggy that was, but loving it at the same time, of course.
Because I guess that's true. In the early days, like electronic music had a real wog connotation to it, didn't it? Like it sort of had that sort of, yeah.
Well, I describe it as having like two tribes. You had the punk subculture, then you had the disco subculture.
Which was more Euro influenced.
Yeah, they were like two tribes and the two tribes will not meet.
Yes.
And when the Summer of Love and acid house and house music kind of come together or start to form in the late 80s, that married both tribes.
Uh-huh.
And that's where, because I really like disco, really like the whole punk thing as well. And then as acid house comes together and techno and house, that's where I think, this is kind of my spot.
Yeah, so it's somewhere it meets in the middle somewhere.
Yeah. And there was the whole hip hop thing, because the late 70s was this really, the raw early hip hop was like, this is, what is this? Mm-hmm. You could say that I really wanted to be a hip hop artist, but I never felt that I was, it's weird to say, never felt I was allowed to as a white person from Australia. I thought hip hop culture was a very American, and, it resided over in North America.
Yep.
Until kind of the Beastie Boys came along.
Yes. And and that's the thing. And the Beastie Boys was a very much a meeting point between the punk and with the hip hop culture,
Yeah. So there's all these intersections, and it's like, okay. So then we found out that the Beastie Boys were kind of like this quasi punk band to begin with Cookie Puss and
with Jewish heritage, some of them as well.
Yeah, exactly. But we didn't care about anything like that. Well, I didn't. It was just like, I just like this music.
And so when you were into the punk stuff, where were you consuming that? Because it's a lot different back then. Like, you couldn't just go to your local record store, find your punk music.
Yeah, I think that music back then, regardless of genre, be it punk or disco, you really had to go on a journey to find this music, like you're saying. So we had to go to the city, and there were some record stores down Flinders Lane.
Yep.
And we had to go out of our way to find music that was different.
Yep.
That wasn't on radio. Being influenced by family, friends, and older siblings and what they were listening to.
People bringing stuff back from overseas?
I know that my parents, our next door neighbour, had one of the first discos in Melbourne called Madison's.
Where was that?
That was on the corner of Flinders Lane and Russell. Was it Russell Street?
Okay.
Yeah, it was Madison's. Huge. They even brought out Sylvester.
Wow.
So when Madison's went down, my father bought the turntables and all of this Euro disco. And it was just sitting at our house. And slowly, as I became older, I started literally opening up these sealed 12 inches.
Like comps and stuff, yeah?
Totally. My father just bought the whole lot as a...
I gotta ask, why was your dad involved in that to be bought? Was he interested in music? Was he interested in clubs? Was he interested in liquidation? What was it?
My father's definitely interested in music. He loves the easy beats and AC/DC and...
Which was pushing the envelope at the time.
Yeah, I mean, he loved that whole Brit pop thing, the Beatles and all that, and I can't fucking stand it, at all. I guess that's...
It's a generational thing.
Yeah, I guess that's my rebellious nature. And I think my father just bought all that stuff as an opportunity. Mm-hmm.
Was he in the scene, or like how
No,
did that even pop up?
No, not at all. I think it was just next door neighbour, opportunistic, and he thought, I'll just grab it. Right. My father's always interested in music, and my parents had a eclectic taste of music. My father into that kind of hard rock, but also there was lots of disco records as well. But this kind of collection was weird because most of them didn't have artwork.
Yeah, white labels and just promo copies and everything. Yeah.
Totally. So it was just, and then I started listening to it, thinking like, this is fucking awesome,
Because you would never have heard anything else like that.
Totally. Exactly. So there was stuff on the radio that was somewhat similar, but thinking, this is kind of just weird. This is another world. So it opened another door for me. Definitely.
Did you get a mixer with it as well, or just some turntables and records?
No, it was just turntables and records, yeah. I clearly remember it was a Technics 1400. So instead of the...
That's a belt-driven one, isn't it?
Yeah, but instead of the the pitch slider, it was digital.
Oh, yeah. So you go 33 or 45 or...
And then it had like an LED readout where you go plus or minus to change the pitch.
Ooh, that's almost like ahead of its time.
It was, but I had it for so long. I gave it over to a friend, because it was kind of useless.
Yeah.
Not that I was trying to DJ or anything. It looked like a piece of, the future at the time.
Yeah. So what year are we talking there?
Or that'd be testing me. That would be early 80s.
So that's for electronic music. That's that's early here.
Yeah, that'd be early 80s. If my time is correct.
Correct. And could you get your head around how it was made or everything? Did you just knew this sounded different to anything else you've ever heard?
Oh, I was trying to play the guitar and I was really bad at it. And at the time, drum machines and music technology started to kind of appear. Mm-hmm. And I was so shit at the guitar. My father played the guitar. He plays the guitar quite well. And my uncle played the guitar really well. But I wasn't good at it. So I liked the effects pedals. I started to discover, distortion pedals and delay pedals.
Still using them in your sets now, I see.
I still use the same pedal I bought when I was 15 years old.
The same model or the exact same one?
The exact same one.
Wow.
So that's part of the Honeysmack sound, I would say. Uh-huh. But then I started to see drum machines. So we would go to these music stores that had synths and just fascinated by it, but didn't really understand any of it.
And it looks cool.
Looked cool. And then we start to, see drum machines, these early, the Boss drum machines. Before we even understood what an 808 or a 909 was. Uh-huh. It just fascinated. Oh, so this makes beats. And it's like, wow. So that's what these hip hop guys must be using. Oh, this is what, and we started to connect the dots, but not in any technical way.
No, but I guess you do see some film clips here and there, and you see that they've got these machines. Is that what they're doing?
Oh, totally. I think it was like Malcolm McLaren's Buffalo Girl, which we go like, how are they doing this? Because we know they're grabbing bits and pieces from other pieces of music and connected. Well, that's what hip hop was doing as well. They were just grabbing the disco break.
And he's coming from the punk world as well.
Oh, totally. Yeah, exactly. He's, a great inspiration. I know he was a bit of an asshole, but...
Was he? I haven't done a research on him.
Well, he was the Sex Pistols. He put the Sex Pistols together.
Yeah. Wow. So then you're seeing this equipment, and I'm guessing that's going to be so far out of your reach back then. I'm guessing stuff like that would have been going for thousands of dollars when, in that day and age, you could buy a car for a couple of grand.
Oh, completely. It was completely unobtainable. We had enough money just to buy one record on a weekend, and I worked on the weekend, in my uncle's milk bar or something like that. And we'd go to buy a record with mates. It's like, all right, you buy that, I'll buy this, and we'll tape it and share it. And sometimes you were just buying records based on album artwork.
Well, you sort of had to, didn't you?
Yeah, or you're just listening to like one or two tracks very quickly. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you bought something like, what the fuck is this? Is shit, But you had to kind of, embrace it.
Were you schooling yourself like, all right, let's look at the record labels, let's look at who's on this stuff? That seems like the natural progression.
Yeah, exactly, because there wasn't the internet, so you had to go to the record store, see what these records, where they were sitting with or who they were sitting with other artists, how they were categorized. Speaking to record store owners was also a big thing as well.
Yep.
Like Missing Link and Pipe Imports.
Where was Pipe Imports?
It was in Flinders Lane as well. And there was Daniel there, and he was selling, metal and death metal and black metal and punk. It's a really tiny store, and he was Eastern European, and he would just like intimidate us to buy something. You see this? Most brutal. You must buy. Absolutely, you must buy. And it's like, all right, here you go.
But he'd do the electronic stuff as well as the death metal?
Well, I only found this out much later on in life that actually it was a electronic music record store to begin with.
And you saw an opportunity.
And it kind of evolved. But yeah, that was the kind of punk and metal stuff going on there. The electronic stuff was really kind of all over the place. It wasn't, buying electronic dance music was really hard in the late 80s for me.
Yep.
Because even when Central Station popped up in the city square, and they were selling lots of, amazing hip hop, and they had people breakdancing. Those records, they were so expensive. It was really hard to buy.
We're talking like $20, $25 back then?
Oh, even more.
Really?
So if you bought something, it was an album.
Yep. To get your 4 or 5 tracks that you liked on it, yeah.
Exactly. So we were looking at things like Beastie Boys, Run DMC, Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, Ice-T, and then going to see them. Although I bought that Run DMC record, I was in high school still, and I got it signed by Jam Master Jay.
At the gig?
No, it's a weird story. I had a friend at school who was a DJ in, I believe, one of the first Australian hip-hop acts called Skippy the Butcher.
Wow.
I don't know if anyone remembers Skippy the Butcher.
What was his DJ name?
Oh, I can't remember. His name was Justin. Awesome guy, great DJ, great hip-hop DJ.
From St Kilda East sort of way?
He was out from Brighton way.
Right.
He introduced me a lot of, great hip-hop as well. And he was the DJ for Skippy the Butcher. Look, my memory's being tested here, but there must have been 6 people part of Skippy the Butcher. They were the support act for Run DMC.
What year are we talking about? 87 or something?
87.
Fuck, that was a good guess by me.
Yeah, it was 87. And I remember going to the gig at Festival Hall, and Skippy the Butcher, I've never seen anything like this, got spat on.
Because they weren't American? Because they weren't
It was just like, I've been to plenty of punk gigs, but seeing hip-hop and I thought, this is kind of weird.
Were they doing the American accent thing, the Aussie thing?
Oh, look, I can't remember. Right, yeah. I can't remember. But so, because they were the support act, he got it signed.
Wow. And he gave it to you? Oh, no, it was yours.
It was mine. I gave it to him if you could get it signed by, any of the...
Still got that now?
I've still got it, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. Skippy the Butcher, I'll have to try and find out. You're not still in contact with him in any way? No,
I lost contact, after high school.
If anyone knows who any of the members of Skippy the Butcher, I'd love to talk to them.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd like to know,
Because that's got to be one of the earliest groups, in an Australian hip-hop scene. There can't be too many to predate that in 87.
Yeah, if I think about what I saw, I think it might have traumatized me into doing... or making hip-hop. I thought this is not acceptable. I just saw the audience not accept this. But it's amazing how it then evolved. But
it did.
Yeah,
everything's got to start somewhere, and I guess that's probably one of the first times that an Aussie hip-hop outfit took a stage before an international, I'm guessing. 87, fuck.
Yeah. And they only were on stage, if I remember, it wasn't like they were on for an hour. This was like 15 minutes or so. Yeah. But people kind of booing and spitting on them. I thought like...
Yeah, that's not cool.
And look, to be honest, I can't even think whether they were good or bad or what they were doing. I just was like, what's going on here?
Yeah. So that made you think, all right, I like music, but this hip-hop route may not be an acceptable way. Do you start to think about the electronic sort of stuff, or where are you going in your musical journey?
Oh, I'm just like a music... What do you say, music lover? I was just into music. I wasn't thinking of any particular musical pathway at all. I was just absorbing lots of, alternative types of music.
Yep.
And being able to say what I like without thinking, oh, I need to like this because it's popular, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Was your dad accepting of your unusual tastes? Because he did bring the turntables and the Euro dance into the house. Was
he accepting? I don't think he knew. I don't think he really cared.
He just was happy you're into music.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I wouldn't be able to answer. I guess so.
Yeah.
But I wasn't the music that he was liking. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you study music at school then?
I don't study music at all.
Ever?
I don't.
You do?
I don't actually have any formal musical training whatsoever. I tried guitar when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. As a teenager, was completely shit at it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I was into it whatsoever.
And it's a hard instrument, I'd imagine, as well.
Well, my fingers were really kind of, I couldn't get my fingers around the guitar, and I wanted to sound like, I wanted to sound like The Clash, And it's like, what am I playing? I'm playing like this kind of folk music that's 20, 30 years old. I don't play this shit.
Yeah.
I don't play like fucking Beatles, So I kind of was really put off by it completely. And
So
never thought about music.
So when you finished school, what did you do?
I was just into art. I wanted to be a visual artist.
Uh-huh.
I like filmmaking.
Doing a bit of graffiti as well?
Oh, I did graffiti in a very young age. How old? I would have been like 14. We're talking 84, 85.
Very early.
86, really early. And there was a book, I'm sure you guys all know, Subway Art.
Yep, got it over there. Yep.
And I picked that up when it still got it, and I just loved it. And I loved the connection, big part of hip hop culture. Just loved it. And started to go out, and I'm not sure what the term's called anymore, but would then, do you call it bombing? Is that?
Yeah.
Please excuse me if I get it wrong. And train stations and all of that. And I couldn't get very far, and it was really just exploring that as a rebellious teenager. But I did do the back of the ABC.
In Elsternwick.
In Elsternwick. And I wish I had because I took some photos of it. I went back a couple of days.
Went back onto the train line.
Yeah. Sandringham line.
Yeah.
It was the word style.
Because why not?
Why not? My naivety, style. And it had a Daffy Duck with his arms
Character.
by his sides.
Wow.
Yeah.
Showing a bit of attitude too.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So I did that. I think I was completely by myself when I did it.
In 84.
One night, yeah.
Wow. There you go.
And then I remember many years later it got, what's painted over? What do you
Capped.
say? It got capped by lots of, much better artists than myself.
There you go.
And mine wasn't very sophisticated at all.
But it's 84, man.
Totally. And, we were using those shit spray cans that had,
Chiseled edges and
it had it was like a big fat line.
Yeah.
And we didn't have anywhere to practice. So you literally practice at the wall and
On the raw brick. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
But that's it. People had to do that to learn and to figure out where it was going to go.
Totally. Yeah.
So you were into your art, you finished school, then where do you go on this journey?
So I was always into art and to contemporary art and art that challenged. So lots of media arts and visual and music, but not music, but sound art, I would say.
Yep.
So I go off to university thinking I'm going to be this amazing visual artist, painter, but I can't draw and I can't paint very well.
So you got into fine arts or visual communication or something? It would have
Fine arts. This is all fine arts.
Fine arts.
Totally.
But to get into that, don't you need you need a folio? If you can't draw or paint, how did you do that?
Okay, so when I was a teenager, I would go and study photography after school.
Yep.
So I did a whole lot of photography classes out in Elsternwick, was learning print and process, black and white and colour as well. So I kind of was heading towards a photographic vocation.
Yep.
But really was doing that as a way to get into movies. I wanted to make horror films. I wanted to make films like John Carpenter and Wes Craven and Dario Argento and George Romero and all of that. I love now it's zombie films. Those stupid fucking zombie stuff today is so lame. But that exploitation cinema of the 80s,
Yep.
really want to make that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so
Because you loved it, or because you just thought it was something you could do?
I had no idea how to do it. No idea. I had a Super 8 camera and would make Super 8 films, really kind of raw and with no technical know-how or very little.
Did the Super 8 have audio? Or was it just
No audio. So what I started to do was film stuff in Super 8, then transfer it to video, then add music to it.
voiceover dubs and stuff?
Not even voiceover, it was just kind of sound art. They were kind of video clips. I would use music of like Einstürz and Newbarton or stuff like that.
So you were scoring it almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have any of those still lying around?
Do I still have that video? I did a video for like year 12 or something called All I Wanted Was a Pepsi, which is the line from a Suicidal Tendencies song. And it was just a whole lot of a collage, chopped up Super 8 films and stuff I would video. So, no, stuff that I would film on Super 8 from the TV.
Oh. Did the teachers mark it well?
Probably not, because they didn't get it, and because we weren't doing, we didn't learn media at school or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
you're forging your own way. You were sampling from the television in a sense.
Totally, exactly.
But they didn't understand that at that time.
Not at all.
Right.
The paintings that I did like at high school they all had names taken from Public Enemy tracks from the first album.
But the teachers wouldn't have got those references.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah. So, and I wasn't very good. So I left high school. I wasn't even good enough to go into art school straight away at all.
So you had to build a folio over a year or so?
Yeah, so I went to like TAFE, build up a folio of, the photographic folio was good, but then did printmaking, some painting and some other films. And then a year after TAFE, I got into media arts at Phillip Institute, which became RMIT, because I could do painting, printmaking and film and sound. Then I dropped painting really quickly and just focused on film and sound.
So that was before it was RMIT. It went through a rebranding sort of period there.
Yeah, it was a small institute out in Bundoora, and it became RMIT.
And that's when the city campus kicked off?
Then I think the media arts all kind of converged together.
Yep.
This was late 80s, early 90s.
Yep.
Well, I think I finished in 1990 was
Right.
when I finished my degree.
Great. Which is, 4 years?
3 years.
3 years of that. And that was at the city campus or the Bundoora campus?
That was Bundoora.
Right.
And then I kept going to uni to get access to studios and to synths.
Yeah.
So I went and did like a postgrad at La Trobe, because La Trobe had this amazing music school with synthesizers. So I just kept going so I could get, because I couldn't afford gear. It wasn't.
It'd be unattainable in any other capacity.
Totally.
Unless you knew a musician who had the budget to buy some shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, when I finished my degree, I think I moved back home and saved some money, and my mother helped me buy like an ASR 10, which became my all-in-one machine.
So explain to that for people that don't know what ASR 10 is.
An ASR 10 is a sampling workstation, so I could take sounds from other sources.
What, like 10 seconds or something? Like how much memory did it
Oh,
have?
no, this had like 30 seconds or something.
Cool.
But we were used to, at uni, we had the previous version, we could only sample 1 or 2 seconds.
Right.
But remember, percussive sounds are really, 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 really short. Right. But this could sample much longer, so I could create my own library of sounds, and then I could sequence them on the same unit as well. So this is no computers at the time.
Of course, yep.
So you had to get the most features out of one unit.
Yeah, because I guess in those early days you had a sampler, then you had a sequencer separately. You'd normally put them together, but this had both in one.
That's right. If you think like what an MPC does today, this is well before an MPC. It was like, was made for real musicians.
Yeah, real musicians.
I was not a real musician.
So you started to, and so were you making what you would call electronic music? Were you making hip hop music? Were you just making your own take on music?
Oh, by that stage, early electronic dance music, such as acid and techno, started to, grow or
So we're talking 91, 92.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And so I'm trying to emulate what I'm hearing in clubs
Yep.
and starting to understand the gear that's required.
So at clubs, they're playing records that people have produced and pressed and sent over here, but you're trying to recreate that at home with your own sampler, ASR 10.
Yeah, kind of using that as a reference because I couldn't go to, even back then, I still couldn't go to a record shop and buy all these records. They were still, you either bought records and became the DJ or...
A disco DJ, essentially.
Well, yeah, just, a club DJ, or you bought gear and tried to make music. It was hard to do both. Well, I couldn't. I mean, I'm sure there's some people who could. But I would buy records and CDs, but I had to be... I had to be very deliberate as to what I was going to buy. Otherwise, I just didn't have the money.
Yeah. So were you buying those to then sample them, though? Or were you buying them just to consume them, listen to them to get inspiration?
Just to listen. So where we got inspiration from, we had to go to clubs because that's where we were hearing all this new music.
So what clubs are we going to?
It was, at the time, it was Chasers.
Yep.
And it wasn't just house music. It was hip house. It was hip hop. It was a collision of all these genres.
It was basically anything that used synthesized beats. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Club music, just in general. There was even high energy Euro dance as well. So you're listening to that and you're going to a club because you know you're going to hear something that you've never heard before. Because what you're literally doing is, I can afford all these records. Not only these artists are really not making albums, they're making EPs. So you go to a club and you would hear people like, I think it was like John Course at the time, play these records. And like, I just want my mind to be blown because I don't know what they are whatsoever. I think very different today. You go to a club and people just want to hear what they've been fucking listening to in the car or on their phone. It's like, where's the value in that?
Yeah, I think post-internet, the DJs stopped becoming the tastemakers and they just became a vessel for the punters. Before that, the DJs were like, this is something that I've researched and found it's cool, you might like it, and they'd become the tastemakers. That all changed.
But that's what we were investing in. We were, although we didn't know it literally back then, these people are buying these records, are performing these records, and then we're being inspired by that whole process. These days, everything is delivered to you, you know? And even what you think you might like is being delivered to you.
Algorithms.
Whatever. I don't, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in an algorithm. There's no, it's literally whatever's popular becomes popular.
Yeah.
Becomes more popular, and then people keep making a photocopy of that.
Yeah, that's...
Until something else emerges. So for us, so I lost my train of thought. For us, it was embracing the journey, not the result.
Okay, so...
Not the destination.
Not the journey. Yeah, it was all about the journey. But so acid house was probably what you were mostly sort of into, but you were going in every different direction.
It was acid house because that was the thing that was really catching my ear at the time, and that was really growing. And then acid house, I started to learn that it was the old punks who found their way from punk into electronic music tended to be around acid because of this box that made the squiggly acid sound.
Which it wasn't intended to, really, was it?
So these are all just throwaway... These were commercial failures completely. So all that gear that started to inform early electronic dance music, they weren't designed to make electronic dance music. They were intended for use by real musicians.
Which makes it even cooler. That's like somebody skating on something that's not made to be skated on. Do you know what I mean? I think that's even cooler.
Totally, exactly. It's like foods that aren't supposed to be together.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'm stretching it there, but but with this gear, these drum machines and synths, they were poo-pooed by, the academy. It was poo-pooed by real musicians.
Yeah.
Because it didn't sound like real instruments.
Yeah.
And the thing that gets me today is that even today, people are still judging what piece of music technology they're going to buy by how it sounds. Well, the gear that we started using all sounded shit because we didn't have any choice.
Yeah.
This is what we could afford. And we went to mates' houses and brought our gear together because that was the most effective way of making music.
Yeah. And that's very true. I always say in this show that when you have limitations, that helps creativity sometimes.
Limitation is the greatest creative driving force. Look at today. You've got, you have these amazing software-based DAWs, digital audio workstations, and they're amazing. You have every sound imaginable, every tool. But what are people making? Of course, there's great music being made, but you're just overwhelmed by all these choices.
Yeah.
Not to say that what we were doing back then is better or worse, but we only had a limited amount of sounds and ways to create something.
Yeah.
So that limitation really bred all this great music, not from everyone in this culture. Nowadays, it's so atomized, and the way not only to extend the conversation, not only is how we're making completely atomized, but also our access to it and how people engage with it.
Yep.
So, and I'm not saying that as a criticism because I don't want to sound like a cranky old man. All that stuff is amazing, but it doesn't mean anything unless you start to control your limitation.
Yeah, I think limitations are great with creativity. If I said to you, if I pulled 3 records out of there and said, make something with these 3 records, right? That gives you somewhere to think. If I say, go and make a song out of all those records, you wouldn't know where to begin.
Exactly. And having taught music or electronic music and approaches to it, you find that, these talented young people who are great performers on, say, traditional instruments are so concerned with the sequence of notes and things like that. And it's like, that's only one part of music making.
Yeah.
No one really gives a fuck,
Yeah.
It's the sum of all its parts.
Yeah.
So the thing I used to get quite a bit having taught people was like, I've got to spend more time on it. And I would look at them in a weird way like, who said you had to spend more time on it? The idea came when you started to record, perform,
Yeah.
That's where I felt your best idea was.
Yeah, and I think that's why I could never make music because I would never know when it's finished, and then people that sit there and they go, and they overproduce it, and you're just like, man, what do my head in?
I mean, it's a dilemma all creatives have.
Yeah.
I think it goes across any art practice, whether it's visual art, whether it's performing arts. It doesn't matter. It's like when is something finished? But there comes a time where you have to let go of it. It's not yours anymore.
Yeah.
And if you don't let go of it, then it's not art.
Yeah.
Art can only be deemed art when it's put in front of people.
Yes.
Yeah? Otherwise, you're just a hobbyist. There's nothing wrong with being a hobbyist, and you can explore and experiment. But there comes a point where you just have to hand it over.
Yeah.
And if that's a period of time, but you're right, we only had limited amount of our sound sources and ways to make. And today I think it's probably more difficult because there's too much on offer. So it can really confuse even the best creatives because how do I know this is done?
Yeah. It's like going into a restaurant and they've got a million different things you don't know, You go into In-N-Out Burger, I'll get that one. Easy. You know what you're doing.
I went to In-N-Out Burger in LA recently. Not so good.
Not so good?
Sorry.
Not the best analogy then. So
That was good. No, it was okay.
It was okay.
I've had much worse. Let's say.
So when you get you got your ASR 10, was it?
ASR 10.
ASR 10, and so then you start to make your sounds. You're getting effects, pedals, whatever you can get an auxiliary cable of a guitar lead and jam in there. You're just experimenting with whatever you can.
Totally. But then, it was a guitar pedal, then got a little mixer, and then I thought, okay, the only way I can release music is I have to be able to record it professionally in a professional format. We had tapes back then.
Yeah.
Well, I can't record it to a tape, maybe just for me to listen to elsewhere. So I got a DAT machine.
Yes.
Right, which is a digital audio tape, which is a tiny little, actually what it is, a miniaturized Betamax V8. Start again. It's a miniaturized videotape that just records pro audio.
Like the Super 8, but even smaller, but with more digital aspects.
Oh, it's completely digital.
Yeah.
And got that, and that's where I could then record and then start to send this music out to people.
So, but again, how do you know when you're finished? You're just jamming on these things, or are you actually composing it?
Wow. Well, Maloney, that's a very academic question,
Well, I'm trying.
Well, composing is performing. Composing is all of it.
And you've always been very academic with your way. Very organic with the way you approach it.
I've always been, I didn't realise this, but I've always been an improviser because I hate arranging things.
Yep.
It's like, I find it completely counterproductive. It's really stressful. So I realise that I'm always in the moment, I'm improvising. And the gear that I have is conducive to being able to improvise.
With all the synthetic stuff talking to each other, can you fuck it up? Like with that, like in some stages you can, but does it communicate in a way that you're never going to sort of do anything out of time? Or is it going to, like, do you know what I mean? I'm trying to get my head around it.
Okay, so there's some fundamentals. Everything has to kind of run in time, but you can also play with that as well.
Yep.
Can you mess it up? Well, I don't understand pitch. I don't understand any form of traditional music theory at all. So I don't understand pitch. I don't understand musical notes. I'm actually not interested. So really it's a collision of beats and rhythms. And in there, it's like it's a block of clay that I start then pulling away. Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. So you slap the big slab of clay on there, and you remove stuff until you're left with the piece.
Yeah. This, to fuck something up means, I'm not hearing something.
Okay.
Or I don't like the way 2 or 3 things are sitting with each other.
To use like a word that I don't know if it is appropriate, but everything's quantized to the thing that you can't really tweak anything that's going to be out of time with the sort of the pattern that you've got.
Well, you synchronize all this gear up via MIDI or whatever your synchronization method is. And certain boxes will have their own shuffle or swing. And then many hip-hop artists will know this, that certain boxes have a particular feel that they have, that is part of their design or part of their flaw as well.
Or
part of their limitation.
Yeah.
So you work with that, and you're constantly trying to push and pull rhythmic events all the time. It's not just drum sounds, but it can be any sound whatsoever. So I don't feel that there's anything that is, messed up. Because when you're experimenting, it's all part of what you're doing in the kitchen, so to speak. So if I don't like it, I don't print it and put it out. But when you're performing live, people won't know if you've messed up. There's no mistake. See that whole language of a mistake relates to adhering to a particular scale or particular music theory rules.
Yep.
I would say there's no rules for me. The rules for me is like, am I enjoying this? Am I in the moment? Are the people around me liking this? That's the most important thing.
Yeah. And are you auditioning sounds to be like, okay, I'll try this? Because you don't know, because you've got so much stuff going on. You don't know how that's going to go because you've got this and this has changed to that and this is a... So are you auditioning stuff and being like, this might not work? If you're there, you're all in and that's going to fucking...
That's
10.
right. That's right. So I have to be deliberate in the way I introduce it.
Yeah.
And be ready to either pull
You
it
can't
back.
half-ass it. You've just got to wear on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or wear it. You know? So, and there's some things that I think, oh that section, just... I couldn't stand that. And then this happens 9 out of 10 times. People go, oh, you know that section? It's like, people go, that was amazing. So what I like is not necessarily going to be what other people like. And what I think is shit, people go like, oh, that's amazing. So you don't know because it's always subjective.
Yeah. And if you keep that thing that you're not loving, do you keep it in for like a full measure? Or do you, if you don't like it, do you go, that's out after 4 beats?
That's a good question.
Well, I'm curious.
I have like a punk approach.
Okay.
Which is, I'll say, fuck it. I'll stop it.
Right.
I'll even tell people. I'll even ask people, was that any good? People know. If people come and see me play, because I'm always on the dance floor, I'll ask people, you think this is good? If it's not good, I'll stop, I'll pack up and we'll refund your money kind of thing. Right? It's that whole shtick that, so sometimes I will stop. Sometimes... it's just being in the moment. Yeah. And it's also being confident with how you feel about what you're doing.
Yeah. And no two performances are going to be the same. Ever.
Never. But sorry, to answer your question, do I audition? I can't audition. I can't audition. Oh, well, actually, no, I could audition, but it's about having an understanding of what I've got in front of me, perhaps the limitation, perhaps round about what something will give me, what something will return. And if that's not right, then, I kind of, it's a really boring way of saying it, but it's like it's a palette, you know? So if I pick up a colour with another colour, will it mix right or not? I'm not quite sure until I've put it on the canvas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And because you've got so many different machines talking to each other, do they ever sort of clash and cancel out each other? Yeah, they do.
Oh, totally. Because you don't know. This is the whole...
sonically, you don't know if that's going to work because I've got this turned on this fucking... Yeah.
Totally. So you're constantly constructing and deconstructing. So because you're always doing that, then you're giving yourself the flexibility to move in and out of things that you may not think are working or are working. And that's the whole point, that it starts to become intuitive. Because people say, oh, do you practice? It's like, well, I don't practice because I'm not predetermining any...
It's not a routine.
I'm not playing songs or tracks. I just have to understand what a particular machine or device is going to output and what it's likely to output. Mm-hmm. So before a gig, I'm just, putting this gear together and just playing with it, jamming with it, and perhaps, tightening up some muscle memory and things like that.
Would you? Is the gear always the same, or do you chop and change between what pieces? Like, obviously, you've got your core elements that you use, but do you chop and change with the additional pieces of gear from gig to gig?
Every single gig is different.
Cool.
Every single gig. So you've got maybe some standard drum machine, but the modular synth is like you are designing your own synthesizer all the time, so you can swap out modules all the time. And there'll be things that I just get so frustrated with it in the studio, but then I'll take it out live and go like, oh, that worked. Or I'll swap something literally 5 minutes before I'm packing up. Yeah. Which, I like that, putting myself under that pressure. Yeah. My wife might hate it, but I like it. Yeah.
Do you stress out before a gig?
I don't stress out. No. I don't think
anticipation.
I don't stress out about what I'm about to do. I guess, stress only comes from things that you can't control.
Okay.
So when performers are stressed, it's because they may have this vision of this perfect platform. But having done this so many times for so many years, you have to be flexible and know that there might be times where you won't have the right space, even though you've given the promoter and the venue your tech writer, you may not get the right amount of space. So you may have to, I might not be able to place a particular drum machine or synth on the table.
Yep.
It happened last week, So, okay. You don't stand there, throwing a tantrum. It's like, you just got to make it work.
Adapt.
Exactly.
So that was a really good, insightful tangent. I'm glad we went on it. But let's go back onto your journey. So where was the first time that you played within that capacity at a venue where you really thought, this is me? DJing probably isn't really my thing. I like this live craziness where it could go in any different direction.
Well, people who know me have heard my nasally voice over and over again will know that I never really was into DJing. I could DJ, and I think I DJed for periods of time, but it was never my thing. I find it creatively, I don't find it very challenging. But I always wanted to perform live or improvise. Even at the very the start of early electronic dance music, I didn't want to DJ because I thought DJing was a skill for hip hop culture. I didn't think it was a skill for clubs or techno or house or anything like that. Well, what are you doing? You're kind of just beat matching. I know there's more to it. Don't shoot me down just yet. So I always felt that hip hop had there's a real art to being a hip hop DJ. But I thought, when it comes to disco, look, there's programming and there is an art to it. But that's the way I felt at the time. So I always wanted to be live. So when I had the ASR 10, I couldn't play live. It was very studio orientated. It was a piece of digital hardware that was very big. And so the more I kept making, the more and more I kept saying, I need to do this live. So it wasn't until I got a drum machine, a small drum machine, like a 909 and a 303, that I could then play live.
Yep. And they're talking to each other. They're both Rolands.
Yeah, they're synchronized, and I had like a drum machine, a little synthesizer. There was 2 little synthesizers. Then I had a little mixer and some pedals. That was it.
Right. But it's still a lot of money worth of gear back then.
Most of the gear was pretty cheap. The ASR 10 was actually really expensive.
Yeah. Because it was used for proper music production.
Well, yeah, because it was a modern piece of gear at the time. This was the computer. This was the software. This was, the sound source. This was everything in one unit.
So DAWs are built on something like that. They're emulating that in a digital capacity.
Totally, exactly. That's the evolution. So I couldn't afford a computer, so it was this humongous keyboard digital sampler. Anyway, so I started to get a 303 cost me $50.
That's cheap. Fuck.
Right? And, the 909 was a little bit more. And then, anyway.
What are we talking now? Mid-90s?
Yeah, mid to late 90s. Now we're talking 95, 96.
Okay, yeah. And so those machines are a bit outdated by then. That's why you're picking them up cheap.
That's right. Well, exactly. Cheap then, and then that was just the cusp of when it started to explode, the vintage synth thing, which actually then came into its own in the late 90s. But you could still find...
And cash converters and shit like that.
Well, there wasn't cash converters, but you could still find on the trading post.
Oh, yeah. The trading post, that's right.
Yeah, and there was like the music swap shop in Carlton and things like that as well. So start to realise, okay, I need certain bits of gear to be able to perform and improvise. Even though the word improvisation wasn't in part of my vocabulary back then.
So you were just performing?
Just performing, yeah. So I remember I had a record label called Smelly Records, which was distributed by Mushroom. And Mushroom were having a Christmas party.
Which is the biggest, well, let's just say the biggest label in the whole country, though.
Yeah, but I wasn't signed to Mushroom.
Okay.
They were just helping me distribute my records.
So you knew someone there, obviously.
Yeah, because I was there, interacted with them quite a bit.
Right.
So they said, we've got this Christmas party at the lounge coming up. why don't you come and DJ? I'm like, I don't DJ. How about I come and I play live? And even then, people are like, what does that even fucking mean?
Mm-hmm.
So got to the lounge. They said, all right, play live. We got a little table, like a coffee table. I put 909 303 in the mixer and just started playing. And they liked it. You know, this wasn't for the public. This was the label and people who work there and associate labels and artists and things like that.
Michael was there, obviously, and like that sort of thing. Like
was Michael there? I guess so.
Okay.
I can't remember. You know, I met him briefly back in the late 90s.
But the label was huge, though. So there's a lot of staff and a lot of acquaintances, and you know, you're looking after other distributors and all that sort of stuff.
So I played and it was 15 minutes or so, and that was it. You know, all over and done with, thank you, shake hands, and we're done. And then Revolver was opening up. So the opening week of Revolver, I get to play. Tina, who was the booker at Revolver at the time, and a good friend, Jason Rudeboy, who was Octave Records, who was Filter with Mad Rod, where I'd been playing at Filter live a number of times at the lounge. Club Filter was a long-running techno club, and
On a Friday, Saturday, what?
no, it was actually on a Wednesday night.
On a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, Jason, Rod, Terence, they really nurtured this whole community in Melbourne and gave all these young, you know, me included, all these young artists a platform to experiment.
Yep.
It was techno. That was the whole point. We weren't doing it because I was like, we weren't doing it because we didn't think it was cool. This is just what we were doing. Mm-hmm. We loved it.
Because it wasn't mainstream enough to be on a Friday or a Saturday, or it wasn't mainstream enough to be at a Chasers or what have you?
Totally. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we were the ugly duckling of dance culture.
The punk kids.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And this was a growing underground. This was the underground. So I would play Filter a number of times live as well. And it was kind of working and start to build a reputation along with other artists that was performing there as well.
So you're doing live sets in between DJs who are spinning records or whatever, or CDs, and then you're like setting up your stuff and they're like, Honeysmack's going to do a live set. Cool. And then back to the DJs.
Correct. Exactly.
Other people doing what you're doing, or you're pretty much one of the only ones?
No. Then we had, there was people like, Wojtek was doing it. Then you had Guyver 3. Adam Scott was doing it. And then Adam as well as we had, there was a whole lot of people doing it, at the time. Adam, who is Sense. And we just changed our names. I don't think I even went by the name Honeysmack. I can't even remember. It didn't even matter. So then Revolver was opening up, and I went and saw Revolver as it was just before the week it opened, and I knew Tina, who was the booker, but she didn't connect me to Honeysmack at all. Right. So just prior to this, Jason and Rod say, "Oh, can you make a track for us for Club Filter? And we're going to make a video." I'm like, all right, I'll just make something. So I did something really quickly, and I sampled Burt Baccarat, Walk On By, and that became Walk On Acid, and gave it to Jason, and Jason say, "That is brilliant," right? And I'm like, okay. I didn't know how to take compliments at the time. I just thought, okay. It's that moment in time. And that kind of became a mild hit. Triple J were playing it, and they got nominated for an ARIA and all.
Did they clear the sample? I don't want you to say anything you don't want, but it seems like a big artist.
No, I actually Burt Baccarat and was it Warner? I remember that Mushroom were about to press this, and they were doing the artwork. They're about to print the artwork on the record or the CD, both. And they said, "Oh, look, we might have to give it all to Warner." And I didn't understand publishing at the time, so I don't care. It's like, do this for money. I just want to make bangers.
Yeah.
And And I remember the day before they came back all excited. And they said, Burt Bacharach has given you 50%. I'm like, I don't know, 50% of what? 50% of zero? You know, I don't get it. What I understand now is that Burt Bacharach agreed that I would be half the songwriter for that. So actually, at the time, I was the only Australian to share a songwriting royalty with Burt Bacharach and Hal David.
Wow.
I'm not sure if that still is, if that's still valid today. But yeah, so we shared.
Which it's turned out cool, but I guess your naivety going in there, you probably could have sampled anything, but you just picked something that was probably a little. Or did that sample you think make it?
Oh, it's a part of it, yeah. But it wasn't any. I was just making it because I thought it was cool. I didn't use it because I'm thinking, Burt Bacharach, Hal David. I was like, no, I probably didn't really like their music. It was all, but I do appreciate their music, and so this kind of this song, I find it weird to say, this song kind of makes it mildly big.
With the help of Mushroom.
With the help of Mushroom. And because Sony wanted to sign me and it never happened because they couldn't help me clear the sample. I didn't know how to do it. Anyway, Mushroom jumped in because they were distributing Smelly Records. So it made sense. So I was signed to DanceNet at the time. And anyway, so this becomes a kind of big hit, whatever you want.
A club hit or a crossover to commercial hit?
Commercial? I don't know if it's commercial. But I got nominated for an ARIA.
Which is amazing.
Wow.
What category is that, though?
At the time it was called, it's so convoluted, it was called Best Dance Music Artist Release.
Okay.
Because they didn't even have a dance. They really didn't have a dance at all. So this was kind of new. So Revolver opening up, I go see with Jason, who knows Tina as well. We're walking through kind of Revolver, that putting their final touches in. Anyway, Jason's saying to Tina, "Oh, you should get Honeysmack to play." She goes, "Oh, I would love that, and I'm like, she's talking like she's not connecting this at all. And then Jason says, "Well, yeah, speak to him." And she thought it was a joke because Jason and I were, we're professional smartasses. We're always having a laugh. It's like, so she realised she didn't make the connection. So I get to play Revolvers. I think it was the opening week, not the opening day. It was with, I had to perform with the Mavises. And I even said to Tina, "I'm not DJing. I'm going to play live." And they go like, "Whatever."
Yeah. And this is where they had the big hit Cry, like there's a big popular song, or is it like...
Oh, the Mavises were pretty big.
Were they?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm a bit younger. So when is this, like 96, 97, something like that?
It's 97.
Yeah,
it's definitely 97 because that's when they opened. And I know that the Mavises was on Hey Hey It's Saturday and all of that.
Right.
That's how you used to know you were big.
Yeah.
See, before the internet, it was Hey Hey It's Saturday.
Well, you needed those sort of avenues to push stuff because you didn't have the internet. That's it. Well, how else are you going to do it?
Totally.
Yeah.
Right, totally. Or before social media as well. So I saw her, she says, "Listen, play 15, 20 minutes, that's all you got to do." Okay, no problem. So I get there, set up my gear, just a few pieces of gear.
In the main room now, in that sort of...
In the front
room.
In the front room, where
the band room now.
Where the stage is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a really hot night, and she says, even the sound guys didn't even know what I was doing, didn't even understand. Anyway, setting up, and come back that night, and I turn my gear on, and the place is packed. Right? I think this was third or fourth night. I think it was one of the second night it was open to the public. It was packed. And Tina had this great vision to collide, different genres. And that's what I wanted to do. So it aligned with the way I was thinking about, how I would present my music or how would I present Honeysmack. So I'm on stage about to start saying, I says, "Yeah, get ready. And I'm like, okay. I've got mates that are coming along and they want beers and stuff. So I've gone to the bar and Tina says, just tell them, give you some beers that you're playing. We don't have drink cards. So I get some beers, and I said to the bartender, "Oh, Tina said it's okay." And she's going like, "Who are you?" Of course, like, who am I? They don't know who I am. And I said, "Oh, look, just take my money. I got to, the sound guy's saying, hurry up." So I kind of throw $50, whatever it was, give my mates beers, jump on stage. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready and get into this zone, whatever it is. This guy comes up to me, slightly older guy, comes up to me, pulls me and goes, "Don't you ever fucking talk to my staff like that." I'm like, oh. I'm like, no. I was, misunderstanding. I really couldn't explain myself. Then he brings me a bit closer and he says, "This better fucking work." I'm like, what the fuck?
The Carmelo?
It's Camilla, right? Yeah. I didn't know who it was at the time. I just thought, he's the owner. He's someone important here. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have time to explain myself. I start playing. Crowd goes nuts. 15, 20 minutes. I look at Tina and Camilla, and they are like, crying with happiness. Yeah. Crowd's going nuts. And Tina says, "You got to keep going. You got to keep going." So 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. And I'm like, I am spent as well, completely, physically, mentally. And Tina's like jumping on stage, she's screaming, "You got to keep going, you got to keep going." And I'm saying, "Tina, I don't have much in the tank, It must have gone for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I said, I'm done. I was even the crowd didn't know, but I was kind of repeating stuff as well. And I was done, and crowd goes wild. And Camilo comes up and gives me a big kiss. He says, "Listen to me. Anytime you want to play here, you come talk to me." I'm like,
you won him over.
Won him over. So, that was a big turning point.
You felt like you could do it now. You could do it there. You had this dialed in.
Yeah, and it grew from there. The first show for the Mushroom Christmas party, the stuff at Filter, which was speaking directly to the techno community, mm-hmm. was really important, a very important point. But then the Revolver thing then kind of elevated it to another level. And
so you became a bit of a regular at Revolver after that?
Well, the point is that being a live improviser performer, I didn't want to be... I was a regular, but not in the sense like a DJ. Uh-huh. I couldn't just play every week.
Yep.
And I didn't want to play every week because I thought it would dilute my value.
Yeah, it loses the mystique. It loses the magic.
I saw him last week, Mm-hmm. So I wanted to be valued, that when you come to see me, it is unique. It is something special. But quite often it did happen that, people like Tina would call me last second and she's, "Oh, can you play? We've had a cancellation." I was like, "Yeah." And you create your own opportunity. Mm-hmm. You're never going to be ready, so you always have to take it.
So are you doing more smelly record stuff on the side while that's happening, or what else are you doing? Because if you're not playing every week, what else are you doing to occupy your time and keep yourself producing and creating?
I was either, working shitty jobs.
But you're not still studying at this point, are you?
Well, I continued studying until a couple of years ago.
So you were still on and off?
I started to do some teaching as well. It was just a whole lot of jobs because I never saw music as being a full-time career, but it kind of started to be. And it went up and down quite a bit.
Yeah.
The times where you kind of got signed and you were touring, and then there was nothing for a period of time.
Yeah.
So it was really a roller coaster.
Uh-huh. So what are you studying at that time then? Because you've gone from your communication, or your fine arts, to your communication, and then you went to La Trobe?
I went to La Trobe. That was still like 93, 94. Then I think around 96, 97, I went back and did a master's at RMIT.
That's at the city campus by this stage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're not really on campus. Mm-hmm. So I did, that was all music, even though I was part of the media arts. Yes, I was kind of finishing off a master's thing, which was like a Smelly Records compilation and a little dissertation. That was it. But again, access to more gear, more studios, access to people who are really knowledgeable in this area. You know, people like Phil Brophy was a great influence on what I did in my undergraduate. And then Phil became a collaborator and has produced a whole lot of tracks as well. So I was being able to be connected to all that at all times.
Yep.
And then it was just shitty jobs. You know? There were times where I'd really questioning what the fuck am I doing, kind of thing. But you need the lows to go.
Did you consider at that point in time, it could be kind of cool to be getting the $80 an hour and DJing, 5 or 6 nights a week because you had that opportunity, you had your foot in the door, you had the connections?
Well, if you can just come a little bit closer for a moment. There were times where I did start to DJ and had shitty DJ gigs, but not for techno. I was doing things like at the Carlton Club, playing, funk and soul and disco and things like that. But I wasn't advertised as Honeysmack or anything like that.
Yeah.
Then in the early 2000s, I went and, for a period of time, teamed up with Ant Celestino and did Acid Jacks, which was a DJ duo. We made music as well.
Which was when house music was going bananas.
Yeah, and, Ant, I have a lot of respect for Ant, his musical knowledge, and, his vision is pretty awesome. And, I think we really complemented each other, and we did the kind of Acid Jacks thing, and we started to call it Idiot House. It was that whole fidget. And that was kind of a whole lot of fun. We did a lot of stuff with One Love.
Yep.
Because
the back room there a bit as well.
Yeah, like it happened just literally by accident. It's actually a good segue because Frank, who ran One Love, and I know because Frank and Ant literally did Honeysmack artwork for years and for many years, and then Frank said, "Oh, I got this one," and I used to do the ads for One Love for Kiss FM. I used to be the voice. It was just really funny how it all comes together because I did the radio show with Jason and Terence as Acid Agency on Kiss FM, and we were just a whole lot of punks playing techno and real troublemakers. So that's how I kind of met Frank, or started to get close with Frank Catella. And Frank said, "Oh, why don't you come and DJ in the back room? But you can't play anything that's in the front room." I said, "I don't have that fucking music. I'm not going to play, those up front house." So no, he goes, "Play techno, play whatever you want." And literally played whatever I wanted. It would be anything from techno to funk to metal. It was just an alternative to the front room, which was a great idea. And I was DJing and Ant was DJing as well. Next thing you know, Frank keeps walking by saying to Ant and myself, "You two got to do something together." I'm like, okay. And it just literally naturally evolved from there. And the back room became more can I say this? Became just as popular as the front room.
Yeah.
And then they had to start putting us in the front room.
Yep.
And then Ant and I were making music. And this went on for, was it a good 5, 6 years, something like that.
And for the kids that don't remember, One Love was the shit for quite a while. That was the club.
It was an amazing club. What Frank Catella and Raf and that crew did for electronic dance music in Melbourne and Australia is phenomenal. It's we owe them a lot.
Yep.
And the thing is that at the time, no one cared. Do you know what I mean? But now we've got the privilege of time to look back and say, look how important it is.
It was very ahead of its time, and it was there to see that transcending of house music into the popular mainstream. Because for a while, house music was played in the smaller clubs and everything, and then all of a sudden you had big places like that doing it. That was not the norm. You weren't seeing it at the other venues. And then all of a sudden, 2004, 5, 6, 7, in the cab on the way to the venue, you're hearing it on the radio. That wasn't happening in the early 2000s.
Oh, for sure. Like Ant and I travelled around Australia to perform. We were on the One Love comps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a great time. But I kind of just got fed up with. Again, I didn't ever wanted to DJ.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it was.
But at least as a duo, it's a little bit more fun and more energy bouncing off each other.
Oh, totally. You know, Ant and I had a lot of fun. You know, people, you know, we'd walk the streets and people would go, acid jack. You know, it's like, so it was cool. You know, it was a good period of time as well.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, I look back on it now, it wasn't really me. There's a part of it that wasn't really me. You know, I enjoyed it, but I was always just want to make fucking bangers.
Yeah.
You know, to want to make techno.
Yeah.
You know, doing the acid jack stuff need to be more. It was more in the popular realm as well, so it needed to be finessed more, and that wasn't really so much me. But Ant came from a punk background as well, you know, and Ant's a very clever guy, you know, as well. So you know, hi Ant.
Did that just petered out naturally?
Yeah, there was. I think it was like a gig, and I just kind of, it was on my mind, and I said, I just said, Ant, I can't do this anymore. And Ant kind of thought that I was, perhaps I was shitty or something. It's just like I couldn't do it anymore, and I didn't have. The funny thing was, like, this was a great earn. It was a full-time thing, pretty much, and I had no other job. You know, it's not like I was planning. You know, I wasn't very responsible. You know.
But if your heart's not in it, your heart's not in it.
Yeah, exactly. And I just had to say it's enough. You know, there were some gigs that we had, and I realised, they don't. Which I understand. These promoters, they don't care what we do. They just want to hear what's on the radio. It's like, I can't do that, or we couldn't do that, or we didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So it was just a time to start, you know, moving in a different direction. You know, Frank and Ant are still, you know, close friends.
Mm-hmm. You still getting some royalties roll in from that sort of stuff, though?
Oh, look, I'm just not good at that stuff. You know what I mean? I'm just not good at it.
But making some good compilations and that sort of thing, you know what I mean? No.
You know, it's like I make music. I perform music to perform music.
Uh-huh.
You know, that's the driver. It's not money. Like, of course, I've got, you know, a wife and son, and I like nice things, of course, and I'm, you know, much older now, more responsible, all those things. But really, money's never the driving force.
Which is, I totally get that, and I agree wholeheartedly. But I think, and I speak to so many different artists, whether it's musical, whether it's whatever, when you don't have to worry about where the money's coming from, you can make better art. You know what I mean? So that's the takeaway from it.
I completely agree. You know, no argument. But when we started to do this, we didn't think about next week. We didn't realise what we were going to do, who we were going to be. These days, we're all so informed, we're all so intelligent, you know, but we're not. I think we're getting dumber, you know. If anyone's seen that documentary Idiocracy will know.
Yep.
So...
And that's playing
that's
out now.
me included. Yeah, I'm not trying to say I'm better than anyone else. We were doing this without any. The only intent was we wanted to impress our peers by the music we were making. Yeah. We wanted people to say, "Whatever you did, that was amazing." That was the rush. Mm. You know, making. It's ironic. You know, because what we always wanted when we were young was to be acknowledged and then to earn money so we didn't have to think about it. The irony is today that electronic dance music is so, you know, is a huge part of popular culture that it is a great money earn. You know, but then there's all these questions that come up: have festivals ruined techno and whatever? You know, all that kind of, you know, rubbish people talk about on social media, and it's like, oh, now it's a great way to earn money if you follow the right,
Yeah.
pathways. But
Is there longevity in that though? You know.
I guess there is if you're smart enough and you're deliberate enough and you use the business vehicles. We didn't have them. We didn't even know how the music industry worked.
Yeah.
We were learning as we made mistakes. We put our hands in the fire so many times that we still didn't even learn. We go, ow, right? And we do it again and again. But we didn't care because that wasn't our focus. Mm-hmm. The music industry had to catch up with us.
And it did.
And it did, and I think that's a great thing. But the underground is when you're always going to find the pots of gold, Does that make, in a creative sense.
Yeah. Did you ever think that? Sorry, go.
No, but I don't want to discredit. I don't want to discredit popular artists and people who are in the spotlight because they're also doing something great as well. But from where I come from, it was always, you knew who were, so it's going to sound nasty, I don't want it to be nasty, but you knew who had longevity. You knew who might be around for a while as you kind of grew through this.
Yeah.
But at no point did I think that, I'm going to do this for a long time. This is what I'm going to continue to do. And age doesn't mean anything anymore. No. I'm, what am I, mid-50s? And I would see people that were part of whatever I was doing 20, 25, 30 years ago. They go, you're still doing it? I'm like, yeah.
What else am I going to do?
This is who I am. I actually love this. Mm-hmm. If you don't like it, that's okay.
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate. Listen, I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life. That's how we learn, right? But I'm actually quite grateful to be in the position that I am. From making bad decisions, from people around me, my family, and people who have been my friends who have said, like, you're a fucking idiot. Don't do that, kind of thing.
We all make bad decisions. It's about learning from them, moving on, and trying not to replicate those bad decisions again. That's the goal.
Totally. We're all part of our entire makeup is bad decisions. If you're not making a bad decision, then you're not part of this planet. You know what I mean? You're actually not a human being.
Yeah.
So, but I embrace all that.
Yeah.
But also, again, grateful for all the rubbish that has happened previously, and I'm sure I'll continue to make,
no one's perfect.
Bad decisions. That's
what makes us human.
But what I can say that this is true to who I am, and you can't teach passion, right? So having taught at universities, can't teach passion.
No.
So that's irrespective of genre, of practice, like music practice, instrument or what have you. I mean, I can't play any instrument.
Mm. No, you're right. You can't teach passion, and you can't also force someone to give a fuck, if you know what I mean. So, like, they're two different things. Anyone can learn a skill. You can learn a skill. There's some people that are better at some things than others naturally, but with practice and determination, you can get better at most things, pretty much anything, but you can't teach someone to have that determination.
It's a great point. And this is what I used to say I used to say it all the time. It used to get me into trouble. I used to say, DJing, I can learn how to be a DJ. Yeah.
I think anyone can if they put their heart to it. They try, yeah.
You can learn how to spray paint. Mm-hmm. You can learn how to draw. You can learn how to dance. What makes someone better than the next person? Well, that you can't teach. Mm-hmm. People say it's talent. It's not talent. It's passion. Mm-hmm. Because I think and I can say this being my age, I think one of the great measures of success is time. It's not money. Mm-hmm. Money's not a measure of success. We all need money. We all want more money, right? That's a given. But if you have longevity and you do what you do long enough and you love it, that all resonate with people. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't matter. You've had a good time doing it.
That's it.
So I think, I'm not the author of that, but I I do believe that.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree. And I take that mentality into doing this here. I put the time and the effort in, and I'm afforded myself the ability to do that. And I'm going to give it a fucking crack.
Yeah.
And I think that totally it resonates with me too, big time.
Yeah. Are we all good at something? I don't know. What does that good even mean?
Well, it's in the eye of the beholder.
Right, exactly. So, but when you teach people at university level, or even just at a tertiary level, just in general, everyone's always talking about whether it's good enough, and even marking, or assessing work that other people do. It's like, it's kind of not up to me to say whether it's good or not. And it's a hard thing to have a rubric behind something that is creative.
I guess from a school perspective, though, they want you to look at the criteria and see if they tick those boxes, right? And it's not up to you to judge the art or not. It's up to you to judge whether they have gone through the processes. That's my interpretation.
What do you work? You work for a fucking university now?
I don't know. That's what I'm imagining.
No, you are correct, but I'm saying from a philosophical point of view. Of course, you need a grade. Grade doesn't mean anything. Whether you're a great guitarist and you can play the guitar really well, actually won't mean that you're going to make a great piece of music either. No. Unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it. Yeah. Am I great at, micro things that I do? I don't know. Am I worried about it? Not at all. I'm not concerned. Mm-hmm. Am I happy with what I'm doing? Yes. Otherwise, I just wouldn't be doing it.
And that's what everyone's got to take out of this stuff. It doesn't matter whether other people like it or not. You're doing it. If you're doing it and you're passionate about it, then you're doing it. Who cares about external validation?
Exactly. Some of the things that has helped me see this is my son. Mm-hmm. Right, Raphael.
How old is he, just to put into perspective?
Raphael is 9 years old.
Right.
Okay. So the way I see this is my son, I'm not pushing him to any form of music. We're trying to give him a healthy dose of eclectic forms of music. Like coming here today, he wanted to listen to the Cramps. Play lots of great hip hop music to him and techno and what have you. So when he's in the studio, he likes to play. He wanted for his 9th birthday, he wanted to play live techno.
Wow.
And even a couple of years ago, just playing a drum machine, you can see that he doesn't, he may not be able to articulate what he wants to do, but you can see he is in the moment. He is loving it. It's scary because I look like, that's fucking me. Huh?
Yeah.
So I can see that. We can all see it, but we see that passion and go, okay, now I'm actually seeing like a reflection of myself. So he helps me understand what I do, and he doesn't have a doctorate.
No, okay. No, and that brings the juvenile fun aspect back to it. You realise that's what it was all about. Exactly.
And so many times throughout my career, people will ask me, technical questions and things like that. Well, some I can answer, some I can't. And I just turn around and people say, does it make you happy? What if you don't know? What do you think you're missing out on?
Yeah.
We're all so informed these days, right? Are we? We're not informed at all. It's just a whole lot of noise.
Yeah, it is. It's true. And we've lost that sort of ability to want to find out. Someone asks you a question, you're like, I don't know, I'll just Google it. Oh, now I know that. So you've lost that thirst for knowledge to find the answer to that.
Yeah, DJs, they're not, a lot of DJs are not even DJs. What are they? They're like political information portals. It's like, what? Back in the day, everyone's got an opinion like arseholes, right? I mean, I've got an opinion as well. I also have an arsehole. But the thing is that, I lost my train. Just make bangers.
Yeah.
I saw something recently where someone said, we live in challenging times, and okay, I appreciate that. But you can either walk into someone had the analogy, it's either like a door that you can walk through or it's a hole that you can fall down. So you have a choice. You're going to walk through a door or you're going to jump down the hole. are you going to see this in a positive way or a negative way?
Full glass half empty.
Do you think that someone is going to come to save you, or are you just going to get on with, your life, your job, whatever it may be?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, I'm not trying to say I'm anyone special. I'm just saying, well, I just went along with it.
Mm.
This is what I do. This is what I enjoy. It's what makes me happy.
And you're doing it.
That's it.
Let's talk a little bit about how you got into the teaching and the doctorate type stuff, because obviously you've been studying and now you're on the other side of the study.
Oh, that's pretty easy. So I continued studying simply to get access to studios because I didn't have any of that gear. And then my profile also started to inform that people wanted to learn how to do this or how to sustain a career, all those kinds of things, all in like one big kind of bag. So I had friends who were academics at RMIT, and they would say, hey, do you want to just come do a guest lecture and things like that? And I would do it every now and again and kind of enjoyed it, because when you teach other people, you learn more about yourself. So you could say I kind of did it selfishly, but I didn't know that at the time. And I did enjoy teaching. So that kind of just grew and grew. Naturally. And as I said before, the Honeysmack thing goes up and down.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that teaching would be a good way to fill those lull moments, which are really cool, because I have the industry profile and experience, and I can transfer that knowledge to others. And it just became something that kind of grew and grew. I ended up teaching at so the masters actually came into to help, because then I could teach at a tertiary level.
Yep.
Even though I didn't get a master's thinking I'm going to teach.
In order to get the studio access.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just all kind of by accident.
Uh-huh.
It was by accident. It wasn't any deliberate. Started teaching at tertiary, like Melbourne Polytechnic, and then that grew. Then I went to Melbourne Uni, and then just started a PhD, kind of because you needed to.
Right.
You got like
So what is your PhD in, for people that don't know?
making bangers.
So what did you do your thesis on?
Okay, so I didn't do a thesis. Because mine was practice led. So I did a PhD in music composition.
Mm-hmm.
And
even though you don't like arranging and composing?
No, because it's about how I collide performance and studio practices.
Yep.
And how I perform with the studio as an instrument.
Okay.
So it really is about my practice as Honeysmack.
Yep.
That's what it is. So it's practice led. So the research is in the music I make and perform.
Uh-huh.
So it was, what was the name of it? It was the title of the dissertation was Baccarat, Britney, and Acid Techno Bangers.
Yep.
The evolving compositional practice of Honeysmack.
There you go.
So, yeah. And I did that because I thought I was going to be teaching in universities for, this is the irony. So then I started to do a PhD with the vision of, okay, I'll probably, I need this to continue to teach. I don't teach at universities anymore. So, and that's okay. That's all cool.
But you can if you want to. You wouldn't go. You past that.
Oh, look, I'm happy to, help out, but I have a different role now, and that academic life is kind of, was that period of time. Mm-hmm. The irony is like now I've co-written some papers, and I'm not an academia anymore.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell us what you're doing now? Is that something that you put on record, or?
Oh yeah, sure. So I'm what's called I help design music technology. I work for Melbourne Instruments. Mm-hmm. So I'm my official role is a product innovator.
Wow.
And marketing. So I help with an amazing startup company in Melbourne called Melbourne Instruments.
Cool.
We've got 2 synthesizers, the Nina, the Delia, and we've just released a MIDI controller called Roto Control. I've been there 8, 9 months so far.
Cool. Are they modelled on retro synths, or they're a whole new thing?
So the patent of Melbourne Instruments is we have motorized knobs. They're not encoders or potentiometers. They are based on drone technology. So if you go check melbourneinstruments.com, you'll see that the front panel, the knobs snap to position as you call up a preset, whatever. And it's fully analog. And this is just like, this is stuff that's been designed right here.
Wow.
And it feels like I've been there longer than, it feels like I've been there for years.
You're at home.
Totally. Like this is I can be me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You get to go and twiddle knobs all day and get paid for it.
Yeah, and so my role is really connecting the market to engineers and engineers to market. When I say market, don't worry, I'm not wearing a corporate tie. So when I market, I mean like people who use this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Excuse me. So it's, I understand how people might use it, will use it, from the novice to the professional.
Yep.
And then helping engineers understand that. And it's a two-way conversation as well.
Yeah. So you're essentially the middleman.
Exactly. So I don't have any engineering background, but I do understand
The practical applications.
Of course, I have a career built on using this stuff and interacting with people who use this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I also understand the language of engineers, because engineers are great. They'll come up with a great idea, but doesn't mean it's practical. See, again, it comes down to this knowing limitation and understanding people's limitation, making, performing. So it's a great challenge to have. It's incredible. I don't even feel like I'm going to work.
Yeah, and it's lucky that it's in your hometown as well. Like, I couldn't imagine there's that many businesses like that are just hovering around Melbourne.
People who know me, when they heard I got this job, they go like, "Oh my God, this is you." It's like, it is.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
So I didn't have to go through that whole university process of, yeah. But yeah, it's humbling. Yeah, I'm very grateful.
And so, just before we move on from the doctorate stuff, back at Britney, do you want to tell us about Britney?
I was signed to Zomba, Jive Electro. So I was the only Australian signed internationally to the same label as Britney Spears. So I met Britney. I had to perform with her.
Had to perform.
No, I had to perform with her in Sydney.
Label obligations.
Yeah.
Right.
Literally.
How was that?
How was it? It was about as pleasant as eating crushed glass, or about as pleasant as taking a shit in an elevator. And I didn't say a fart; I said taking a shit. Right? I'm very deliberate there. What happened was I was signed, and she came out to do a promo for Crossroads.
Oh, the movie that tanked.
The movie that tanked, that was funded primarily by Pepsi. It had John Goodman in it. So she came out to Fox Studios to do this kind of promo concert that you couldn't even buy tickets to.
It was just a big, junket thing, yeah.
It was massive, right? It was massive. She played I think 4 or 5 songs, and the studio wasn't even big enough. They had to build this ramp that she went outside to the car park. There was 10,000 people there. It was something ridiculous. I don't know the numbers, so don't get upset. I don't know the actual number, but it was massive. So the label had this amazing idea. Let's get Honeysmack to play with Britney Spears. So you want someone who plays abrasive acid techno to play with a teenage, pop starlet. What could go wrong? I'm wondering. So the punk in me said, yeah, of course, right? The other side of me saying, this is just going to be a disaster. I don't care. I'm embracing this. So they said, all right, we'll fly to Sydney and you play 2 songs from the album that we're about to release. And it was like 2 kind of like disco sounds. I said, all right, then I want a string quartet to play the string sounds. I didn't even know what that meant. So they got like the string quartet to be on stage, and they didn't even know the piece of music. No one organised anything. Literally 5 minutes before stage, this string quartet's going like, what are we doing? I'm like, you play along to this song, don't you know? No, we don't know. It's like, well, this is like amazingly shit.
Basically shit.
It was just like... So I get up on stage, and these are just, young girls, young teenage girls screaming for Britney, like, right? And I am playing I Do What I Do. And
Are
I'm
you DJing as well? Or are you just doing the live stuff?
doing live stuff. So got like an MPC, a 909, some gear, and it's like, this is just a disaster. People couldn't even hear what I was doing. That's how the screams, silenced what I was doing.
Beatles mania.
Totally, exactly. Right? And it's like pretty intimidating, and I'm hard to intimidate, but I thought, like, okay, I'm now going to give it some, I started picking my nose, started, saying fuck off, and, started grabbing signs and throwing them. It was something like that. But people who knew me knew that I was being kind of humorous, and no one got offended. Because
the label weren't pissed?
Label weren't pissed, right? I don't think I threw any signs, but I was like, trying to be Henry Rollins on stage, right?
Yeah.
Channeling my Henry Rollins and Cosmic Psychos on stage. And I finished, and I remember the director of the label at the time saying, oh my God, that was so fantastic. We're going to have to use this in one of your video clips. And they were just like in awe of it. And I looked at my manager and I said, if there's one piece of that video on, they are not to fucking dictate, Yeah. Well, let me tell you, the irony is, not the irony, the end of the story goes like this. Within 2 weeks, I was dropped from the label.
Probably for good reason, though, and you probably weren't happy there either.
No, the label kind of shut up shop. So it had nothing to do. They actually had an album that they'd already accepted and were about to release, but they'd closed up shop. It had nothing to do with the performance. It was just the turn of events.
Yeah. What advice would you give to young people who want to get involved in this thing? Because everything's going full circle now, and a lot of people are probably moving away from the traditional DJing and want to get more into the performance sort of stuff.
My best advice, do what makes you happy. Mm-hmm. Do what makes you happy. And it doesn't matter if you're happy, if you do it for just a short period of time or a long period of time, just be in the moment. If this makes you happy right now, do it. Mm-hmm. I know there's a lot of forces, and, you have to be responsible and, plan. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, do all that. That's kind of a given. That's what responsible adults have to do. But with creativity can't be planned.
No.
Sorry. Creativity comes from the heart, not the head. Uh-huh. And unfortunately, a lot of our society and the way things are marketed, that we think that we have to be the best and the cleverest and the most technically proficient. You don't, Of course, if you want to cook a meal, you have to know how the frying pan works or the oven works. Of course, you have to know that. That's a given. But having a great oven or buying a really expensive knife and chopping food really finely doesn't mean that you'll make a great meal, So, give what you do context. Yeah? There's lots of ingredients that make a great piece of music, performance, or a career.
So even if you make a shit meal, have fun while you're doing it.
Totally. Like, we're wogs. We like to cook. Some things, you forget something. Or, you overcook it or you undercook it. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to kill anyone as long as you...
Don't put any mushrooms in there.
Exactly. But I think, overthinking is... We're all challenged by it. Mm-hmm. Stop overthinking. Stop giving a fuck about what other people think. Because people don't know what you're doing, how you're doing it, and what led you to it.
And they don't know what's going on in your head. They don't know your thought processes, right? Once you start to take criticism from external people, they don't know what you're doing and where you want to go. So fuck them.
Well, if someone doesn't like what you do, it has nothing to do with what you're doing and how you're doing it.
It's them.
Totally. It's about that person, that moment in time, about how they're feeling. Has little to do with what you're doing, how you're doing it technically or creatively, because they don't understand.
Yeah.
And they're not privileged to an explanation from you.
Correct.
You know, you will know the people that you will value their opinion because of their, I don't know, their friendship, their knowledge, their understanding. But the lay person or someone you don't know, what does it matter if they like or dislike? It's that whole social media thing, you know, use it to your advantage. It doesn't matter if people say good or bad things.
Yep.
People saying something matters, you know. It's very strange. I know that we think that art and music is very personal, but it's not, because when you send it out into the public, you don't own it anymore. When you don't see good art, you don't see good artists. You don't see well-known artists explain what they do. Good, bad, or indifferent. They just don't explain it.
They put it out, then they move on to the next thing.
Totally. You know? And that's part of crossing the line between hobbyist and professional as well. That one, the hobbyist mindset versus a professional mindset. Once it's out there, it's out there. Yeah, people are going to dislike it. And it's not a bad thing.
No. And if you don't have haters, then you're not really making any waves, are you?
Exactly. You know, so this is the part of making art. You need to be able to give it context. And context involves all the things, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yep.
You have no control over it. So the better you get at not giving a fuck what other people think, the better you'll be at your art and the happier you'll be. And hopefully the longer you can keep doing this. Most people stop making art, making music, making visual art is because
they're worried about what people think.
Totally. Oh, couldn't do it anymore. The pressure. What pressure? Pressure of what? These, I'm generalizing, but people tend to give themselves this pressure. You are wearing it. You have a choice. It's like being offended. You have a choice to be offended or to not be offended.
Yep.
You don't feel offended. You make a choice, right?
And this is amazing advice, and I take it on. How old were you when you came to this sort of conclusion? No, because this is interesting.
About an hour ago. No.
Because you are matured now with that mindset, but not everyone thinks like that all the time. So how old would you sort of ballpark it?
I don't know. I don't even think I knew that I had this mindset. Huh? I don't say, I looked in the mirror one day and said, I knew all this. I don't think that at all. I just think that I was too focused on making techno and performing that I didn't have time to stop and think about what was going on around me. Maybe kind of an Aspergerish kind of way. Am I allowed to say that if I offended someone? So maybe that was hyper-focused, maybe, yeah. Because I remember my managers in the past were always kind of pissed off that, when I went to a show, I would just be ultra focused on what I was doing, and people would come and say hello, and I'd be dismissive of them, and people thought that I was arrogant and all of that. It's like, I appreciate that's the way people saw it, but I think it was I was just focused.
Professional and focused. And if that came across arrogant, well then, yeah.
Yeah. People knew, and then when I was finished, I was so mentally exhausted and physically exhausted that I just had to switch off. But when people spoke to me outside of those environments, then I'm happy to share. I mean, this is how I learned to transfer knowledge, how to be a good educator.
It's all about the process and the learning process.
Well, you have to be able to share. So you do that as an artist. You also have to be able to share elsewhere. But when I was on the job, that's why I never really, I never drank. I never took drugs because it's like I'm focused on. There's a whole lot of things I'm doing. I'm the sound guy, the arranger, the composer, the performer. There's so many things going on so many micro levels. Whereas a DJ, you could say, just for argument's sake, they're bringing some pre-recorded music, and they have a limited array of tools in order to perform that piece of music. I know these days there's way more, but for me, I'm putting a studio together on stage and then performing it, and without very little preparation. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there was just ultra focus. Did that answer you? Did that answer your question?
No, it did. I want to ask you a couple more things as we get close to wrapping it up. We've almost done 2 hours, which has gone quickly, hasn't it?
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I want to ask you a couple more things. Are you happy with the state of music at the moment? Are you liking where it's going, or are you disliking it?
I always like music. Uh-huh. There's nothing to dislike. Uh-huh. I always want to be challenged by something new. Yep. Always. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a grumpy old man who thinks that social media is shit, or this is shit, or that is shit. It's like, there might be shit parts to it, sure, but I think out of the shit, something grows, you know? You got to remember, when you want to grow a plant, you have to put manure, right?
Yeah. Starts with the shit. Yeah.
Exactly. So something will always grow, and sometimes of course I hear something like, what the fuck is this? This sounds, you know. Yeah. And then others like, what is this? And there's always bits of gold everywhere, and that's what makes it exciting. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think that there would be a time where you could go to probably 30, 40, 50 clubs on a weekend to hear techno music in Melbourne?
No, not at all. You know, I'm too old to go to.
But that's the level of popularity that it's at. It's, you know.
But again, it's, you know, even back in the 90s, techno became a catch-all word for all electronic dance music. These days, it's so, again, it's atomized. When people call it what techno is today, I don't even know. You know, I know it's just a consumer label, but it's like, that's tech. That's, you know, that's techno. You know, I would say, you know, like to Kevin, I say, that's techno.
Yeah.
It's like saying, you know, oh, we've got pizza with chicken and pineapple. That's it. That's Italian. That's pizza. It's like, that's not fucking pizza. But it is, right?
It is. Yeah, it is.
So there's something that you have to accept it.
Yeah. I had a pizza last night, which was kind of sweet. I wasn't expecting that. You know, that's their take on it. I don't know. It was a traditional Italian pizza, I thought. You don't know.
Yeah, I had like, in LA, I had like a pepperoni pizza with a hot salami and they had like honey on it.
Yeah, that's what I had last night. Yeah. I didn't ask for that.
But like, I ate it. I liked it. But it's like, you know, it's a pizza. I don't know. It's a question.
It's a question.
Up to you. Up to you.
You mentioned Kev before, and what does he mean to the techno scene or just the music scene? Because he obviously is involved in that, but he loves all sorts of music and anything electronic. He's doing some great stuff, man. I guess you value his friendship dearly and think he's a huge part of this scene.
Of course, because Kevin loves great art. It's not just about techno. You know, Kevin is a lover of the arts. So he loves that whole spectrum. Of course, techno is one of his things that he holds close to his heart, but he's someone who's been part of the community for a very long time. He always gives his time willingly to everyone, you know, sometimes to his detriment.
I think, yeah, he's too kind sometimes, yeah.
That's right, he's too kind if you can say that. But I understand, it comes from a good place. And I think that's part of his superpower, is that he, you know, we're aligned with what we like. Oh, he likes Star Wars. I fucking can't stand Star Wars. Jesus Christ. But, you know, when it comes to music and art and things that are challenging and media arts as well, he has his finger on the pulse. Absolutely. You know,
and he's happy to help people.
That's right. And you know, being able to help a range of people also makes him current and relevant all the time.
For sure.
You know?
Even with starting this, he watched a few of the early episodes. He called me. He's like, man, if you want any access to people, I'm happy to help you. I've got this database. And he didn't need to do that. He just wanted to help me in my pursuits. You know?
Well, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here because of Kevin. You know, I didn't know you. I heard of the podcast.
Yeah.
and saw some of it. And Kevin says, like, you should do this. This will be good. It's like, oh, okay. You know, so sometimes I may not understand, but I have to also, again, you have to let go of control.
Yep.
He thinks it's good. Okay, we do it. Done.
We value his opinion.
Exactly. So that's an important thing, trait to also have, is that some things are out of your control. Well, it's part of like not giving a fuck. You know, you also have to give control to other people, because the music industry, there are so many people who contribute to how something becomes successful financially or how things get heard. So you have to, you know, let go of some things, you know, even if you think it's not right.
Yep. As we get close to wrapping it up, is there anything you want to tell people that's happening for Honeysmack or anything in the future? You got any gigs coming up? Any other stuff? Any new synths or anything coming out with Melbourne? What's it called? Melbourne Instruments?
Melbourne Instruments, yeah. Well, I go to Berlin shortly. So I'm going to play in Berlin. There's a big show in Berlin I'm playing. And then also have Super Booth as well, which is the big synth show in Berlin.
Okay.
And we're showing off, you know, some of our new stuff.
Cool.
As well.
Yep.
Yeah. So exciting times.
Exciting times.
And there's more gigs. There's a great show coming up mid-year in Melbourne as well. I don't know the details just yet, but
watch this space. Well, for the first time ever, we've had a doctor on the show, Dr. David Honeysmack. Thanks for coming.
No, thank you, Melanie. My pleasure. I hope you're not asleep just yet. Now's a good time. Go to bed.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers.